What's up guys? In this video I'm going to be showing you how to make a naked GoPro Hero 11. This is the primary camera that I've been using for the last few months for all of my drone tour projects, so I wanted to show you guys exactly how you can strip down a full-size GoPro like this and build one of these yourself. Alright, so if you follow this channel, you know that I use naked GoPros quite a bit. When I fly indoors for real estate, I use naked GoPros 99% of the time. For the last year or so, I have actually been using naked Hero 8s for all of my real estate fly-through projects. Once GoPro introduced the 8x7 sensor on the Hero 11, I had to upgrade the camera fleet. And when you want to film vertical video on a Hero 8 or anything before the Hero 11, you actually have to rotate the camera like this. So I used to film one take horizontal and then one take vertical. So now with the Hero 11, I don't have to do that. So this right here is the camera that I've been using, and this is a Hero 11 Black stripped down and in the Flywoo case. I was originally going to film this video for you guys using the Flywoo kit that I have here, but after not finding any assembly instructions, not having a pinout for the BEC that's in here, and having to take a Dremel to the front metal bracket that's on the GoPro, I decided to wait to make this video with the GEPRC case instead because I feel like I'm going to like this one a little bit better. I spent pretty much an entire day filming a video on this case. I think like the next day GEPRC released this and I saw it and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna do the video on that case, then we can compare the two. So I ordered one up and I just got it in the mail yesterday. Both of these cases, the Flywoo case and the GEPRC case, I purchased with my own money, so nobody is sponsoring this video. At the end of the video, I'm gonna give you guys my honest thoughts on both of these cases and which one I'm gonna be using for all of my GoPros moving forward. Let's start this off by taking a look at the new GEPRC case that's going to be holding all of the GoPro pieces together once we get it apart. All right, so we got a bag with, I assume, everything we need to make a naked GoPro. And then in here, we have some cards. Hey, look at that, a little pinout for the BEC. That's nice. Comes with a little screwdriver. We've got the back plate right here. I want to see the front plate. There it is. Ooh, that's nice. I like that. That is clean. Even has a laser engraved little 11 down the bottom. All right, so we got the front plate, we got the rear plate. I'll zoom out so you guys can see what the hell I'm doing. This is either adhesive or heat sink. We got the BEC in here. Let's open this up. So there's the BEC board. I like it. Got some pads that you can solder to as well, so you don't have to use the plug. And you got pads down here too. Nice. You got the ribbon cable here. This is going to connect the BEC that we just saw to the components that are in the GoPro. And a GEPRC cleaning cloth. Add that to the collection. We have the power cables. These power cables have balance leads on the end, so you can technically just power the camera from your balance plug. Oh, look at that. GEPRC gave me one. Flywoo never sent me the piece of glass that sits on front here, so it looks a little fucking weird, but GEPRC included one. They even included an ND filter. We got the fan. This goes on the back to cool it down. Screws to hold it all together. And we have adhesive here. And it looks like we have the mounting bracket and some mounting screws. One of the main things that I saw in the GEPRC case compared to the Flywoo case that kind of made me want to redo the entire video that I filmed on this with this case instead is the fact that this entire front plate is actually made of CNC aluminum, so it doesn't utilize the big metal bracket that's in the front of the GoPro. You'll see that when we take the GoPro apart, but there's a giant metal plate that's in here kind of around this, and it's the piece that comes inside the GoPro. So in front of this right now, that metal piece is in there. You take that out and you have to actually cut the ears off so that it's flat, and then you use that here. So what GEPRC has done is the whole front plate is actually its own aluminum piece. So it's gonna not only help with protection, but it's gonna help with heat dissipation too. On the back of the case, we got the buttons up here. This is very, very similar layout to the Flywoo case. You can see the fan's gonna go here. I guess we'll do a more in-depth comparison at the end of this video, but it does have a different mount, so you can't use the same mount that's on here for this. What I did was this is the same size as the GoPro Bones mount, so what I did was I printed a little TPU adapter, a full-size GoPro adapter, and this is gonna be able to fit right on there, and now we have a full-size GoPro mount. All right, let's get right into this. This is what you need to make a naked Hero 11. Links to all of these things are gonna be down in the description. Obviously, you're gonna need a GoPro Hero 11. You're gonna need a case to put it in once we tear it apart. I'm using the GEPRC Naked Hero 11 kit, and this comes with everything you need. You're gonna need a screwdriver kit. I use this one. I don't know the name of this. I'll leave a link to this down in the description again. But this is an electric one. It comes with Torx bits, Phillips heads, a whole bunch of different stuff. So you're gonna need one of these. You're gonna need a small saw or a Dremel. I would recommend this over a Dremel. I think only do a Dremel if you're patient and you know what you're doing. And so you don't slice up your hands with your saw, I would suggest some cut resistant gloves. All right, step one, before you take your saw to the GoPro and start tearing the thing apart, first thing you gotta do is make sure that the GoPro is all linked up with your phone through the GoPro app. Otherwise, you're not gonna be able to control any of the settings on this once we tear it apart. Also make sure that you switch your Wi-Fi from 5 gigahertz to 2.4, and also make sure that the GoPro is either running the latest firmware, or what I would suggest is just install the latest version of GoPro Labs. I'll leave a link down in the description on how to flash GoPro Labs to your Hero 11. Once you have all that complete, we can start tearing this thing apart. All right, so with your GoPro off, let's remove this battery cover right here. This just pulls right off. Take the battery out, take the memory card out. So once the battery's out and everything, we have 4 screws under here, and these are the little mounting shoe screws. We'll take these out, there's 4 of them. And this is a, what is this? This is a Torx, a T5H. I don't know what that means. You can actually use the little screwdriver that GEPRC included in the kit. This is the same size as these. We can remove this, add it to our collection, and store it for safekeeping. So now with that off comes the fun part. Now we're gonna take our saw or Dremel and we're gonna be cutting around this rear screen. So when we're doing this, I'm gonna be wearing my gloves because fuck slicing my hand. Hold the GoPro like this, and you're gonna basically just go right around the very edge, right where this rubber seal is, right where that rubber seal meets the plastic. That's where you're gonna wanna cut. You're gonna cut into the rubber a little bit, and once you get a groove going, then you can kind of just work your way around. I would start on the corners like this and then just kind of work your way around, and there's a little metal lip in there, and the saw is going to hit that and you won't be able to saw any further. You'll know once you hit it. All right, so once it gets to that point, once you start hearing stuff like that, then you're getting to the metal piece and you don't really have to cut anymore. So I'm gonna keep going on this corner because this is pretty much the last piece that I need to get. Once we get that, this back screen should pop right off. So now you can kind of see the ribbon cables that are in there. So if we tilt it up this way, we can pull it over a little bit, and now the screen's completely off. And now we're left with just the ribbon cables, and as you can see, they're right there. So I would take, you can either use your fingernail or you can use one of these little kind of plastic spudgers. I wouldn't use anything metal because you don't want to ruin those connections in case you do need to connect the screen again. So pry that one off, pry this one off, and then this piece you can just cut or pull off, but this is just a piece of tape. So here's the screen, you can clean it off. Definitely hold on to this. So now with the screen completely removed, you can take your gloves off, put the saw to the side. We're all set with that. We're not gonna have to do any more cutting. Everything else we're gonna be doing is pretty much all through here, just using your screwdriver. So now we're gonna start removing some screws from this. So we have a couple screws inside this battery cage. We have one through here, and then one down the bottom. And then there's also some screws in here that we're gonna get. I don't think we need to remove those necessarily to get this out of here. So I'm gonna remove this one first. And then my bit isn't long enough to get in there, so I'm gonna get a longer one. And then if you have this go straight through, you'll eventually feel it in there. there's that. And then there's another one right here. You'll be able to see this one. This goes straight through and is right there. Save those, throw them out, I don't know, whatever. I'm not gonna use them again, so fuck it. So now this battery cage should pull right out. And this is attached to a ribbon cable, and that's probably just gonna unplug itself because it's sitting right like that. So now we have the battery cage. So that frees up a lot of space in here. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna start removing all of the stuff kind of around here. So what I like to do is I'm going to initially remove, there's a screw right down in the bottom corner in here. It's a little tough to see because it's pretty deep in there and it's dark, but you remove that one. These are all Phillips heads. I'll tell you guys if it changes from a Phillips head. So we got that one out. All right, so then right along in here, there's also another Phillips head kind of hiding right there. So we'll take that one out as well. There we go. And that's gonna loosen up this plastic piece, and this plastic piece is kind of just holding the ribbon cable for the camera down to the board. So now we can remove this. And again, this is just kind of like taped on there, so you can kind of just pull it out like that. And you can take some scissors and just cut that off. Or pull it off like that. So now we have this out of the way. I'm actually gonna go get a pair of scissors. I'm gonna cut this little piece off right here. This is just tape, you don't need that. The next part I'm gonna focus on is mainly just this bottom piece right here. This metal piece is part of that metal bracket that sits in the front of the GoPro, so we're not gonna be able to remove that, but what we can remove is this piece right here. Now, a lot of videos that I've seen, people are trying to remove this screw right here. Point it out to you. So you got two screws basically holding this board onto the GoPro. You have this screw right here, and then you have another one in the opposite corner. Now the one that's in the opposite corner is very, very difficult to get to. And I realized this when I was taking apart my last Hero 11, you don't have to remove either of these screws. This piece actually pops right out with a little bit of force. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove these two ribbon cables from the board. So we have that one right there. Just be careful of this ribbon cable right here. You might want to disconnect that. I'm going to keep mine plugged in just because I don't want it flopping in front of it. But if you take a little pair of tweezers like this and just kind of stick it into the USB-C port and push, it's going to click out like that. And now this piece just falls right out. Let's take this off. I'm going to remove the lens protector right here. This just twists off. And then we have four, I think this is probably the T4 bit again. Remove these four screws. Just be careful of the lens. You don't want your screwdriver slipping and going into the lens because that wouldn't be good. Now with those four removed, I'm gonna put this lens cap back on just to protect the lens because we are gonna continue with it like this, and obviously I don't wanna scratch the lens up. So now I'm gonna work on removing the lens. So to do that, I'm going to remove, there's a Phillips head in the corner. I'm gonna focus on that one first. So we'll get this in here, and it's right in that corner, right there. So then these next screws I'm gonna remove. I'm gonna use a H1.3. And we have a screw right here, and this is gonna hold the lens in. So the next screw I'm going to take out is the same size, and it's right next to the Phillips head that I just took out right before that one. So that's right in this corner. You'll feel it right there. I find it easier to put the bit on first and then put it on your screwdriver. And then remove it, because it's pretty far down there, and I don't think a lot of screwdrivers are going to actually be able to reach it. There it is, right there. So now what I'm gonna do, because I wanna remove the lens next and just kind of get that out of here, the ribbon cable for the lens, we're gonna disconnect that. You use the same plastic spudger. Again, I would not use a metal spudger. I would just use something plastic. So I'm gonna try and pull the ribbon cable up so that it's not in my way. And we have another screw. You can't, that's kind of like right above, you can kind of see it there, like right there. So you have to lift the ribbon cable up just to get to that. And there's that. So now with those 3 screws removed, we have the 4 on the front removed, the lens pops right out, right like that. So here's our lens. And now this part came right off, and what you can do is to remove this metal bracket in case you wanted to keep this piece. Since this is still fixed to the frame, you can just kind of place it, put it back in place and twist it off, just as you would if it were secured, and then it separates. Continuing with the stuff on the bottom, we can remove this speaker here, and that just pulls out like that. All right, so now the last board that's really holding in the main board is this board right up top. Now this has the GPS on it as well as the shutter button, and this is held in with 4 screws. We have a screw right here in the middle, we have 2 on this side, and then we have 1 over on this side. So just remove all of those. So now the last thing holding in this board is just this ribbon cable right here. You can just use your fingernail, pry it up, and now the whole thing should pop right out, right like that. Now the last couple things holding this in are some ribbon cables and some screws. All of these screws are Phillips heads. So I'm gonna move back to my electric screwdriver. We're gonna remove all of those Phillips heads. And we're gonna disconnect the ribbon cables, and this should come right out. So we have 1 more Phillips head right in this corner right here. There's that one. We have a Phillips head right here. And I think that that's it. I'm going to just pick up this piece of tape. This black piece right here is just some tape. There might be a screw hiding underneath that. I'm not sure. Nope. Okay. Cool. So there's no other screws holding in the board or anything. So we basically have 3 ribbon cables we got to remove. We have 1 right here, and we have 2 over on this side. So just disconnect those. And this one is actually for the front screen. So just be careful with this one because we are going to want to use this. There we go. So now that everything's disconnected from the main board right here, we should be able to pull this out. One trick that I like to do is right here you can see a lip on the board. If you put your thumb on that and just kind of push a little bit, that immediately just kind of disconnects it. And now the board is up and out. I'm going to take the plastic spudger tool. We're going to remove the heat sink that they put on here. We're not going to be using that. I'm pretty sure that the GEPRC case comes with a little bit of heat sink, so we're going to use that. All right, so we're not completely done yet because we do want to utilize this front screen. So to get to that, what we're going to have to do is we have 1 more screw that's up in the corner. You guys see that? Right here. So we're going to remove that, and that is a T4, I think. Is it T4? Yeah, T4. So that screw is a T4, and then we have some plastic rivets, and one of the plastic rivets is right here. We have another one, I believe, right there, and then I think another one right here. So I'm gonna start by removing this screw, and again, this is a T4. So now to remove the rivets, I'm gonna take some of these side cutters, and I'm just gonna kind of cut the rivets. All right, so there's 1 rivet. We have another one right here. Just try to get your pliers underneath it. It's really tough to show. Kind of like that. And then just cut it like that. So we do have 1 more rivet in the corner over here. And before we get that out, I think it would just be easiest if we just ripped out this metal shield. And this is just the metal shield for the mode button. So we're not going to be using this. So I'm just going to kind of tear it out of here. Right like that. There we go. So now that that's out of there, now we can access this rivet that's in the corner a lot easier. So just take your side cutters and do the same thing you did with all the other rivets. Just kind of cut it off. Once it's off of there, take your side cutters or something and just kind of grab this base part right here and pry it out, and it should come right out right like that. So now this is the piece that holds the screen on, and there's nothing else in here. And the final step is just removing this screen from the metal bracket. If you're not using a heat gun, just take it slow. I am not using a heat gun. I'm just kind of working my way along the bottom, and it is slowly lifting up. Just go slow, and you'll be good. And there we go. There's our screen. All right, so we're down to our 3 primary components for the Naked GoPro 11. We have our main board right here, we have our LCD screen, and we have our lens. Now, if you can, on this piece, you're not gonna have to reuse this because we're not using the Flywoo case. I'll talk about that in a minute. But if you can, take this bracket off of here. Now, you don't need it, but if you can get it off, I would recommend it. I would say just take one of these little bits right here, and they actually have little holes in the corner, so you can just put this in here and pry up. And there's adhesive lining this right here, but work your way down, and then the piece separates, and then you can just grab it and you're good. Again, you don't need this piece because the screen will still work without it, but it just kind of helps it sit in the frame a little bit cleaner. Take this piece and take your screen, and this just kind of fits right like that, and just press it on. All right, let's get to assembling this. All right, so we got the BEC board here, put that just right here, and we have the fan. So we're gonna wanna splice these wires so we can solder them to the board. I'm gonna put a little bit of flux. I have this flux pen. I'll leave a link to this down in the description too. But I'm gonna put some flux on the pads that we're gonna be soldering to. And with this piece, since this requires 3.3 volts, we have a 3.3 and then a ground right underneath it. So let's pre-tin these wires. Now I'm gonna pre-tin the pads. We have 3.3 volts on top. And now we'll get the ground hooked up. And now we can start putting this together on the main board and in the case. I'm going to start by installing our screen, and they include some new adhesive. I actually ended up taking the old adhesive off of here because they include new adhesive. I'm just going to put it on the sides. I think that that'll be plenty of adhesive to hold it on. Right like that. I think that's perfect. Peel the backing off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed this ribbon cable through the front plate. It's going to go like this. And I think the easiest way to do this is get the top portion of the screen in first. So it's like that. And now the ribbon cable can just kind of help pull it down closer to the frame. Right like that. That's perfect. I'm gonna press on it lightly to make sure that it's secured down to the frame. Looks good. And I think while that's holding, I'm gonna put the front glass on just to finish that off. So I'm gonna take this piece right here, and this has adhesive on the back, so all we gotta do is take this out, take the backing off, and we'll take this other backing off, and that exposes the adhesive. And now this fits right over that. I like it. I'm going to keep that on there just so that I don't scratch the screen when we're assembling the rest of the case. Before we install the lens, make sure it's nice and clean. You're not going to be able to clean this. Not only that, but make sure that the inside of your case is clean. So if you have any fingerprints on there, just make sure you wipe them up. So now let's get the lens secured down. So in your little bag of screws, there's gonna be a bunch of screws that are really long, and then there's a couple that are really short. I'm gonna take the short ones, and we're gonna use that to secure the lens down to the front. So these are a Torx bit, and this is the screwdriver that they give you, so I'm just gonna use that. We'll take our lens. It's gonna sit right like this. On the bottom, the top two are gonna actually take screws, but this bottom one is just kind of a little notch, so it's gonna sit right in there, right like that. And then we'll take our screwdriver with the screw that's on it, and this is a magnetic screwdriver. We'll put the small one right in the top there, and we'll secure that down. Then we have the other one right in that corner. Just nice and snug. You don't have to tighten it down crazy. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the main board attached to this. Now before I put the main board on, what I'm going to do is, if you remember when we were taking this out of the GoPro, they had some heat sink sitting on top of this part right here. So I'm going to put some of the heat sink that came in the GEPRC case on the main board real quick. That's what this stuff is right here. And this is just going to help with heat dissipation. Take one side off. Just place it right like that, press it down. And now there's another plastic piece on top of that. Just peel that one off. So now with the heat sink on here, this is gonna fit right like that. So we have to obviously put it around that first, and on the other side of the ribbon cable for the front screen, and it's just gonna fit right in place right like that, and it's kind of automatically just gonna align with a couple different screws. So we're gonna use 4 screws right now, and we're gonna use the smaller ones. You should have 4 left, and these 4 screws are gonna go in this corner, this corner, this corner, and what's the other one? This one. So these bottom 3, and then this top corner right here. And again, this is using the orange screwdriver that GEPRC included. So now that the main board is secured down, we can secure these ribbon cables to the board. So these just kind of click right in place. You'll feel it click. You'll know that it's in. Before we secure down the ribbon cable for the camera, we're going to want to put the BEC ribbon cable that GEPRC gave us. This one is going to attach to the main board, and then this ear right here is going to connect to the BEC board. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to line this bottom one up right here. I'm going to click that in place. And once that's in place, all these other ones are just going to line up nicely. All right, so there's that one. And then this lines up with that port right there. So that should snap right in, like that. And then this is the whole reason why we didn't plug in this cable in the first place, because this part actually goes underneath the camera cable. So we have to plug that in first. So now we can secure our lens. And once you get the ribbon cable for the camera all lined up, just push it down. Again, you'll feel it click into place. That looks good. All right, so we have our ribbon cable all attached to the main board here. The only one that isn't attached is this one, and this attaches to the BEC board, like I said. So here we have our BEC, and before we put this on, there's a couple things that we have to put on here. So GEPRC included these little, they're kind of like foam or rubber gaskets. So we're gonna take 2 of these, and these actually fit right over these little metal nubs that are on the board. So we're gonna put one here, and we're gonna put one here. And this is just gonna help separate the BEC from the main board. And now we'll take the gasket, and I'm gonna put this gasket right like that. Now I'm going to do the same for this one. Perfect. And that's just gonna mainly help the BEC separate from the main board. And one last thing we have to do before we attach this to the main board, we actually have to take some of that double-sided tape that they included, and we're gonna put a little piece right down here, and it's gonna attach to this. So actually, technically, I'd probably put it right on there. So the way that this works is there's a little black tab on here. You gotta pull this out. It's probably gonna look like that. All you gotta do, pull it out like that, and it unlocks it. And now what we can do is take this ribbon that we didn't plug in yet, and that's gonna slide in. And then to lock it, we're gonna push that black piece back. So it's gonna sit like that. Make sure it's pushed all the way in, and then just close that black bracket, and you should be good. So now we can secure down the BEC board to the main board. I'm gonna take one of these smaller screws and the screwdriver that GEPRC gave us, and we're gonna put this in right through here. And that's gonna go right through the main board and into the front case part. And just make sure that it sits nice and aligned. We're not gonna put one through this hole yet. Once we put the back case on, a screw's gonna go through there. So now, the final touches, we're gonna take our fan, and this has a little groove down in the corner right here. So that's where the wire is gonna go. So it's gonna sit right like this. We can push our fan in. The back case has little nubs, I guess, and a little plastic things poking out, and those are what hold the fan, and the fan sits right like that. So now we can take our case, we can put it right like this. Now the last thing you need to do is just put these 6 screws in. They're pretty much going through this and into the front of the case. So right like this. So when you're putting in this top corner, you're actually going to use one of the slightly longer screws. Since it's going through the main board and the BEC, it's going to have to stick to the front case, so you need to use a longer screw. Otherwise, the rest of the screws are all the same length. Nice. All right, so now that it's all put together, the last thing to do is to power it up and make sure it turns on. GEPRC gives you 2 of these power cables. One's for a 4S LiPo and one's for a 6S LiPo. This is gonna plug directly into the BEC board on the back right here. Like that. And then this can plug in right here. So we get some blue flashes on the back. That fan is very quiet. That's a lot quieter than the Flywoo one. Here, I'm gonna put this fan about 4 inches away from the microphone, and then I'll show you guys what the Flywoo case sounds like from the same distance. So that's about 4 inches away. Here's what the Flywoo case sounds like. And that's from the same distance away, pointed the same direction. So the GEPRC case is definitely quieter. That thing's loud. So this is definitely quieter than the Flywoo case. So to turn this thing on, we have the power plugged in, the fan's going. We have the power button right here, and then next to that we have the shutter button. So I'm gonna click and hold the power button for like a second or two. This blue light should flash. Yep. And there we go. Now the GoPro's on. So there you go. That's how you make a naked GoPro 11. Before I end the video, let's take a look at this case and the Flywoo case, and let's compare the two. Personally, I love the fact that the Flywoo case has the hole in the back right here, so you can easily connect the screen if you wanted to. You can get a thing on Flywoo's site where it's like a 3D print that holds the screen, and then it just plugs right into that, and you can change your settings very easily. Unfortunately, if you want to do that with the GEPRC case, there's no hole in the back, so it's not as easy. You'll basically have to take the GoPro apart to connect the screen. Something else that I like about the Flywoo case is that it weighs 45 grams, whereas the GEPRC case weighs 50 grams. It's really not much of a difference, but when you're dealing with smaller Cinewhoops, that 5 grams can make a difference. Another thing that I like about the Flywoo case is that it utilizes the same power connector that my other naked GoPro has, and my other naked GoPro is in the nameless RC case, so these take the same exact power connector, whereas this, even though it is the same plug, the voltage and the record pin are swapped, so just be careful because this is not interchangeable with this, and you can't use this on this. I don't know what'll happen, I'm not testing it, but just be cautious of that. Now here are the things that I don't really like about the Flywoo case. I couldn't find any documentation on how to assemble this thing. When I got it in the mail, it was obviously in a bunch of pieces, just like this one, but this one actually utilizes this front plate, and to use this front plate, you gotta cut off this, so you need a Dremel, you gotta cut this bracket off, and you gotta cut this bracket off. So you basically have to modify this to fit this case. And obviously this one, it's just built into the GoPro. The case is made entirely of plastic and doesn't protect the lens. This is something that I think I really like about the GEPRC case. This is one of the only cases that I've seen that has this. The Flywoo one, the lens is exposed. On the nameless RC case, the lens is exposed. On my iFlight case, all of them have an exposed lens, but GEPRC, I'm pretty sure they actually have this on the Naked Hero 8 that they sell too, but this is part of the front plate, so you're gonna get protection over the lens. And before I forget, the last thing that I don't like about this case is I didn't get this piece of glass that goes over the screen. I don't know if that's supposed to come with a case kit, but I didn't get one, so it's kind of exposed, and it definitely doesn't look as clean as this. So, I don't know. I don't like that about this one. So overall, the GEPRC case definitely takes the cake for me. The aluminum front plate that protects the internals and just helps with overall heat dissipation is an awesome design. It also protects the lens, which is one of my favorite features because none of my other naked GoPros do this. The fan is very quiet and it's built into the case and makes it a lot cleaner looking. And I'm sure since it's not screwed into the back like the Flywoo one, if you look at this, there's kind of like vents on the other side. It kind of looks like this. So this really isn't probably getting as much airflow as this because the fan is actually just built into it. And it is the same thickness. The Flywoo case actually looks a little bit thicker. Interesting. Obviously, it came with this protective glass that goes over the screen right here. It also came with an ND filter. I don't really use ND filters on my naked GoPros for the real estate FPV videos, but it's always nice to have an ND16 on hand in case I am doing some purely exterior shooting with it. So they include an ND16 with the case. I don't have any ND filters that fit this camera. So that's how you make a Naked Hero 11. I just ordered a few more of these GEPRC cases since I plan on switching all of my naked GoPros to this case just to keep it consistent. This is going to be my main camera going forward for 99% of my fly-through projects. If you need more information on assembling this case, GEPRC has an entire manual, and I'll link to that down in the description. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, leave this video a like, and if you have any questions about making a naked GoPro 11, leave a comment down below.